if you've been with me for a while, if you've been following my page for a long time, you know what my model is. My model is, one of my many models is, things happen when spirit, when the universe, when God allows it to be. So you all know that I do try my best to stay as consistent as possible with at least being able to deliver Tarot Tuesday and what have you. But sometimes life does get in the way, and sometimes responsibilities get in the way, and sometimes one's plate is full. And we all have a lesson to learn. And one of my lessons for a long time now, and one that I continue to learn and relearn and perfect, is that there's only so much that we as a human being can do. There's only so much that we as a human being can do. And sometimes many of us tend to overload our plate, taking in more than we can do, more than we can handle, taking in more than we are supposed to, you know? So lately, for the past 8 months, actually, literally for the past 8 months, I've been surrendering more and more and more to the reality that even though I have a history of pushing myself over the limit, even if it's at my own, even if it's at my own risk of insanity, in order to deliver, I will push myself over the limit. That's just a flaw that's a lesson that I have to work through, right? And I've learned for the last 8 months that there's only so much that I can do, and that it is perfectly fine to not be able to do the things that you're used to. It's perfectly fine to not be able to keep up to date with what you're used to. It's perfectly fine. And I've had to learn that the hard way. And so for the past 8 months, I've been coming in and checking in and doing Tarot Tuesday and doing things as best as I can, but not with the same pressure that I always tend to put upon myself. I have to do this, I have to do this, they're expecting me, I have to do this, they're expecting me, I have to do this, I have to do this. No, not at the risk of my peace of mind, my sanity, my physical well-being, that I cannot, I refuse to continue putting that at risk. So today is the day that I was able to make the time to check in, and also because Spirit has been really pushing me with a message today that I want to deliver to you as briefly as I can, because I am not going to be, contrary to what I always say in the past, I'm not going to be here for 2 hours. I promise you that, because I have to be off here shortly. But I did want to come on here to share something that I feel will reach whomever it is meant to reach. I am happy to be here. I'm happy to check in with you all again. I'm happy that some of you are still here. You haven't abandoned this page, right? And I thank you for your love and your support. And I thank you for the messages that I get, and the DMs that I get, and the emails that I get, and the text messages that I get. I want to also take the opportunity to thank those of you that reached out when you heard about the passing of my stepmom, my father's wife, who just passed away early this month. Coincidentally, which there is no such thing as a coincidence, she passed away on the Afro-Cuban feast day. She passed away on the Afro-Cuban feast day of Oya. And Orisha Oya, she is the energy vibrations of transformation, of change, of the one that ushers our spirit into the other realm, into the other world, right? So it's so interesting to me how things play out, how my stepmom passed away on such a significant day for us Afro-Cubans on the day of Oya. But what's even more interesting is that that same day for us Afro-Cubans is the day where we celebrate the Oricha Oya. But in Brazil is the feast day of Yemaya. And she was a priestess of Yemaya. She was a priestess of Yemaya. She was a crowned, ordained, initiated to Oricha Yemaya. So it's such an interesting thing to me how it played out. You know, her being a priestess of Yemaya, passing away on that day where we celebrate in Cuba Oya, and where in Brazil Yemaya is celebrated. So interesting to me. But anyway, here I am. Again, these are many lessons that I've been learning for the past 8 months, where, as I said a little bit ago, I cannot continue to force myself to do more than what my body, my mind, and my inner spirit can handle. And I don't know how many of you are in that boat, or how many of you have been there, or how many of you are learning this lesson at the same time I am, but trust and believe that we cannot, should not do more. You might even want to write this down. We should not be doing more than our body, our mind, and our inner spirit can handle. If it's not in alignment with your inner spirit, your physical body, your mental body, then it shouldn't be done at all. Okay? And I've had to learn that lesson the hard way. And I tell you, as consistent as I try to be with coming on here every Tuesday and doing Tarot Tuesday and staying active on my social media pages and posting and sharing, for the last 8 months, it has not been able to be like that. And I've had to learn how to be at peace with it. At peace with not being able to do all that I'm used to doing. At peace with not being able to come on every single Tuesday as I used to. At peace with not being able to return every phone call. At peace with not being able to return every email. At peace with not being able to satisfy everyone's needs. At peace with not being able to stretch myself thin. I've had to learn that. I've had to learn how to be at peace with that. Because if I'm not in alignment physically, spiritually, energetically, mentally, emotionally, even though I may always be giving my best of myself to you, if my best of myself, you might want to write this down too. If my best of myself, if the best of myself is taken away from my well-being, then it's not really my best at all. Did you hear that? If the best I am giving of myself to you is not good to me, then it ain't good at all. So for the last 8 months, I've had to learn how to just say no, how to ignore certain things, because I just didn't have the bandwidth, the energy, the mental peace, the space to deal with so much, right? And as time and weeks and months continue to go by, and as other lessons continue to flow through, I become more at peace with the reality that I can't be everyone's savior, with the reality that I don't have the answer for everyone, for the reality that I may be the healer for this individual, I may not be the healer for this individual. You might need somebody else, and it's perfectly fine. And whoever needs to hear this message, you need to know that whoever is for you will be for you. Whoever is not for you was never meant to be for you. So I've had to learn that the hard way. And it's so interesting. We may know certain things intellectually. We may know certain things consciously. But even those things that we understand and know consciously and intellectually, because it makes intellectual sense, is still something that we have to learn in our spirit. What we always know in our brain may not always reach our spirit. So it's not what's in my brain. It's not what's in my mind. It's not what I am able to consciously and intellectually know and understand. It is what I've been able to process and learn successfully in my spirit. That's what counts. So too much has been going on. Just way too much. Too many changes. Some of it which I can't or I'm not ready to share with you just yet. And others, it's just been a roller coaster ride up and down. But, I'm still here. I'm still kicking ass. I'm still breathing. I'm still here for you. I still love my soul family. And I will continue to do what I'm able to, when I'm able to, for you. Because that's my vow. That's my promise to spirit, to the divine. And I will never turn my back on my divine blessings, but not at the risk of my sanity, peace of mind, mental health, no, not at the risk of that. Not at the risk of that. So let me get to the message that I really want to share with you. And the message that I want to share with you this afternoon or this evening, depending on where you're checking in from, it is entitled, You Had to Do What You Had to Do. Oh, thank you. A perfect fit. I love you too. I love you all very, very much. And again, thank you for your support. Thank you for your understanding. Thank you for always showing my page, which is our page, so much love and so much respect and support, even when I have not been able to be as present as I would like. I appreciate that very, very, very much. And I hope that what I've been able to share in the last 10 minutes or so makes sense to you. And I hope that it does something for you, because it's not just for me, it's also for you. We're not an octopus. We try to be, but we're not an octopus. We're not a robot. We're not, we're just not a machine. We are a human being that needs to each day of our life understand what our limitations are. So that we're not running ourselves thin, right? Anyway, enough of that. That being said, my message this afternoon to you is you had to do what you had to do. Okay? Can we please start off this message, which is the reason I actually came on. Everything else was just an add-on, but I'm here to deliver this message as Spirit has pushed me through, and I have to get out of here soon. So let me do it as quickly and as possible. I want everyone to write, whether you understand where I'm going, whether or not you understand what I am about to lay in your heart and in your spirit. I want you to write in the comments. I want you to write, I had to do what I had to do. Come on. I want you to write it in there. Write it in there. I had to do what I had to do. I want you to write it in the chat. I had to do what I had to do. Come on. If you're not in Muito Oscuro here, trying to just eavesdrop and be curious, if you're not one of my haters, I want every one of you to write in this chat right now, I had to do what I had to do. I had to do what I had to do. I had to do what I had to do. Spirit gave me this message earlier today. I had to do what I had to do. But now understand this. Now I want you to understand what I want to lay in your spirit today. Spirit came through and said, you had to do what you had to do when you had to do it, right? You had to do what you had to do when you had to do it. But, even though you had to do what you had to do when you had to do it, the problem is that you accidentally stayed there. You had to do what you had to do when you had to do it. But the problem is you accidentally stayed there. You were never, ever meant to stay there. You were never, ever, I need you to open not just your ears. I need you to open your heart. I need you to open your inner spirit. I need you to open your soul. I need you to give yourself permission to take this into every fiber in your body in this moment. You had to do what you had to do when you had to do it. But Spirit says the problem is you accidentally stayed there. You accidentally stayed at the place where you had to do what you had to do in order to survive. You had to do what you had to do when you had to do it, but Spirit says you accidentally stayed there at the place, at the situation where you had to do certain things in order to survive. So let's break this down. You accidentally stayed there. We're using the word accident. When something is an accident, it means it was unplanned. It means that it happened at a degree of an impact. It was an impact, an impactful situation that occurred as a result of what you had to do in order to survive. The problem is, Spirit says, most of you are still living at the place of the accident. Most of you are still living at the place of the tragedy. Most of you are still living at the place of impact. Most of you are still living at the place where you had to do what you had to do when you had to do it in order to survive. Am I speaking to anyone yet? Does this make sense to anyone? You had to do what you had to do when you had to do it in order to survive. But Spirits come back and says, the problem is you accidentally stayed there at the place where you had to do what you had to do when you had to do it in order to survive, when in reality, it was never meant for you to stay there. Some of you are still at the place of the accident, at the place of the trauma, at the place of the tragedy, at the place of the loss, at the place of having to endure certain things, do certain things, accept certain things, at the place where you had to lower your head because you had no other alternatives, at the place where you had to stay quiet because you couldn't go anywhere else. But some of you are still living your life silently. Some of you are still living your life not being able to speak up because At the moment in time that you really wanted to speak up and say what you had to say, you couldn't say it because when you were evaluating, when you were weighing, okay, when you were weighing the pros and cons or the worst possible case scenario, you opted to stay quiet because if you would have said what you had to say, it would have caused a different kind of impact that could have practically killed you. And you opted to stay quiet in order for you to survive this situation, in order for you to survive the trauma, in order for you to survive the scenario that took you to that place of impact. But the problem is that you're still quiet. The problem is that you're still silent. The problem is that you won't speak up. The problem is that you still lost your voice. The problem is that you don't still to this day don't know how to stand up for yourself. The problem is that you're still asking other people permission to be you. Do you understand me? Am I making any sense to anybody? Is there at least 5 souls? Are there at least 5 soul tribe members that this makes sense to? You're going about your day, you're going about your week, you're going about your month, you're going about your year. You're being the full-time mom, you're being the full-time employee, you're being the full-time caretaker, you're being the full-time this, the full-time that, but you're still living at the place of the incident, at the place of impact, at the place of tragedy, at the place of loss, at the place of conflict. You're still living at the place where you lost your identity. You're still living at the place where you lost your identity. Do you hear me? This is 2023. This is a number 7 year. And number 7 requires that we speak our truth, regardless of how hurtful it might feel, how hurtful it might be, how hurtful. We must speak and approach and face this year with our ultimate, most authentic truth. And the first person that you need to be truthful towards is yourself. The first person that you need to be truthful with is yourself. So then, if this is the case, then what is Spirit really asking us? Spirit's first question to us is, what are you lying to yourself about? What are you lying to yourself about? Intentionally, conveniently, knowingly, unknowingly, consciously, subconsciously, fearfully. What are you lying to yourself about? What are you lying to yourself about your money situation? What are you lying to yourself about your relationship? What are you lying to yourself about your job? What are you lying to yourself about the dynamic you have going on with your parent? What are you lying to yourself about what's going on with your child? What are you lying to yourself? What are you lying to yourself about? Okay, let's go back. You had to do what you had to do when you had to do it in order to survive. And Spirit says the problem is, though, you weren't supposed to stay there. You were never meant to stay there. You were never meant to stay there. It was meant for you to do what you needed to do. It was meant for you to do what needed to be done at that particular moment in order for you to survive that, but it was never meant for you to stay there. You were never meant to station there. You were never meant to station there. So let's address certain things. Why is it that I had to do what I had to do when I had to do it in order to survive. What part of me? This is a question that you need to write down. What part of me kept me there at that place? What part of my being stayed stuck at that place? What part of my persona stayed captive, imprisoned at that place, in that situation? What part of me? Is it my inner child? What part of me kept me there? Is it the lack of self-trust? Is it guilt? Is it shame? Is it lack of support? What part of me kept me there? Is it judgment? Is it criticism? Is it lack of recognition? Is it feelings of inferiority? Is it a feeling of not enoughness? Is it, I don't know, performance anxiety? Is it false expectations? Is it fear? Is it self-sabotage? What part of me keeps me there at that place? I don't know who you are. I don't know who this message is speaking to, but I'm hearing a message flow through in this moment that says, how about the fact that you stayed there because you had to do what you had to do when you had to do it, so others around you ended up believing that this became now your responsibility, the role you assumed. Hear me out, hear me out, hear me out. The role you assumed when you had to assume this role, others around you are under the misunderstanding, the misinterpretation that this is what you need to continue doing. And this is where God's very universe, Oricha, Egun, this is where your spirit guides, this is where the stars, this is where whatever higher source tells you today. You have the power to change this and fix this. Others assumed that because you had to do what you had to do when you had to do it, that now that meant that you have to do it forever. That this is the role that you have to play. That this is the role that you signed up for. When in reality, you did not sign up for that. The situation, listen to me, I don't know who I'm speaking to in this moment, but the situation called for you to do what needed to be done in that moment, but it never meant that you were supposed to do it forever. And many of you have sacrificed 5, 10, 15 years of your life doing something that you were only supposed to do at that particular moment, but it was never, ever meant for you to do it forever. But because you don't want to let people down, because you are in fear of being called out, because you are in fear of being rejected, because you are in fear of not being spoken to again, because you are in fear of feeling like you failed your family, like you failed your mother, like you failed your father, like you failed your grandma, like you failed your auntie, like you failed your son, like whoever. You stayed there. And this, which provoked you to stay at the place that was never meant for you to anchor in, is the same contributing energy. It is the same contributing energy. It is the same mindset that allows you and provokes you to stay stuck in other areas of your life that you can't seem to find your way out. It is the same contributing energy that keeps you stuck in other areas of your life. And right now, what you're going through in your life, if this message is for you, right now, what you're going through what people like to call out there an identity crisis. Why is he saying that I am going through an identity crisis? I thought identity crisis means X, Y, and Z. How is he tying identity crisis to this message? I am tying identity crisis to this message because whoever you end up being is not who you truly are. It's who you have become, but it's not who you truly are. And the crisis is taking place in this moment in time in your life because something in you can't handle it anymore. Something in you physically, something in you mentally, something in you spiritually, something in you emotionally cannot handle it anymore. And because your physical body and your spiritual body and your emotional body and your mental body cannot handle it anymore, you're going through these changes in your character, changes in your attitude, or you're going through some physical changes in your health. Aches and pains and discomfort, diagnoses that you don't know where the hell they came from. And Spirit is inviting you to break free. Break free. It's an identity crisis. Spirit is saying, this is not you. This is not you. This is who you became, but this is not you. This is what you were convinced that you had to do, but this is not you. This is what you were told you had to do, but this is not you. This is what others expect of you, but this is not you. That's why you're never fully happy. That's why you're never fully happy. That's why you're never fully happy. That's why you never fully enjoy moments in your life. This is why you never feel like you fit. This is why you never feel good. This is why you feel the way you do. Because you were never meant to stay there. This is very common. Okay? This is very common when people have been married for 10, 15, 12 years, 20 years, and all of a sudden one day, you decide to throw everything out the window because you just can't fucking take it anymore. And those that have the foggiest idea of what you've been through and how long you've been through it are quick at judging you, criticizing you, family, friends. Look at her. How can she do this? How can he do this? How can she do that? Motherfucker, you don't know how long I've been here. You don't know how long I've been assuming a role that was never meant for me. You don't know how long I've been swallowing down things that were never meant for me to eat. Okay? You don't know what I've had to endure. You don't know how many times I saw blessings walk right in front of me, but I was tied to something. I was tied to a lifestyle. I was tied to a behavior. I was tied to a responsibility that was never meant to be for me. I assumed the responsibility. I assumed the role, but it was never meant to be a lifetime role. Did you hear that? Some of you are living a life in a lifetime role, like those soap operas that never end, when you were only supposed to live through that for a season. You were only a season show, okay? You were only a season show, but you decided to make it a life series. Did you hear that? You decided to make it a Days of Our Lives. You decided to make it a General Hospital. You decided to make it a One Life to Live. It was never meant to be an everyday, forever role. So the one thing I want you to bring out, the young and the restless, exactly. You decided to make it the young and the restless. And you know why? Because of expectations. Mama told me that divorce is ungodly and God is going to punish me as divorce. But yeah, my mama is not the one going to bed with someone that don't satisfy her. Mama is not the one going to bed with someone that disrespects her. Mama is not the one laying in bed with someone that doesn't know how to honor her. Mama is not the one dealing with someone that disrespects your humanity. Mama is not the one having to deal with the BS that you go to home every day to. And if this is the role that she decided to adopt in her lifetime, it don't mean it ain't the one that you're supposed to carry on. Do you hear me? My. You had to do what you had to do when you had to do it, but it doesn't mean you have to do it forever. And it doesn't mean that you're supposed to stay stuck there. That's my message. That's Spirit's message. You took something that was supposed to be a moment, that was supposed to be for a period of your life, and you signed off on it like it was a death sentence. You signed off on it. Did you hear me? Do you hear me? So where do I go from here? Some of you might ask. As cheesy, as corny as it might sound to you, as much as a cliche as it might sound to you, Spirit says, God says, Egun says, ancestors says, Orisha says, whatever you believe in says, I just want you to surrender. Surrender. Surrender to the God of your understanding. Surrender to the divine source of your understanding. Surrender to the higher power that sustains you. Surrender yourself to Mother Earth. And whoever this message is for, stop living this whole, I'm love and light crap. I'm sorry, some of you are going to get upset about what I'm about to say. Frankly, I don't give a shit. But it ain't always about love and light. Love and light. Love and light. Why are you going to bed every night depressed? Love and light. Love and light. While you're dissatisfied every single day of your life. Love and light. Love and light, love and light. When every single day you wake up feeling fucked up. Love and light when you are hating every part of your daily love and light like life. Did you hear me? Sometimes it's about war. Sometimes it's about battle. Sometimes it's about confronting the most uncomfortable parts of you. Sometimes it's about getting down, getting dirty, getting your hands dirty. Sometimes it's about speaking what's going to bother everyone. Because this love and light, which is also toxic positivity. Love and light, it will all be okay. It ain't going to fucking be okay until you do something about it. It's not going to be okay until you do something about it. The problem is with some of you, you want someone else to come do something for you when you don't even have the guts to do it for yourself. And it doesn't work like that. So you can't go around with love and light, love and light. Ooh, who's that? Love and light, love it. No, sometimes you need to get upset. Sometimes you need to get angry. Sometimes you need to put your foot down. Sometimes you just need to say no. Sometimes you need to say no more. Sometimes you need to say, I don't care. I don't give a shit. Because nature, regardless of what our denomination, religious dogma, creed, understanding, connection is, we all come from nature, baby. We are a part of nature. Okay? And what that means for those of you that are acting like you don't understand what the fuck I'm talking about. Nature is beautiful. Nature is sunny. Nature is autumn. Nature is also winter. Nature is the summer. Nature is the breeze. But nature is also tornadoes. Nature is also hurricane. Nature is also mudslide. Nature is also ugly when it needs to be ugly. When it needs to transform, it gets ugly. When nature needs part of the earth to transform, it gets ugly. And people die. So, what are you lying to yourself about then? What the fuck are you lying to yourself about then? Love and light. Love and light. Girl, please. This whole love and light ain't gonna resolve all of your problems. This whole love and light ain't gonna make sure that you're living a harmonious and joyful life. This whole love and light without addressing what's at the root is gonna keep us living in turmoil and ugliness. And it ain't gonna motherfucking work. It's just not gonna work. So I need you to surrender. I need you to surrender. I need you to surrender to the Most High. I need you to surrender to God, to Spirit. I need you to surrender to the highest source of your understanding. I need you to surrender. I need you to say, you know what? God, Spirit, Universe, Oricha, I assumed this role. I assumed this responsibility. I had to do what I had to do when I had to do it. But in the process, I forgot that I wasn't supposed to stay here. I forgot my way. I forgot where I was supposed to be, where I was supposed to go to. I forgot where I was supposed to be at. I forgot my original plans. I forgot where I was heading. I was heading to college. But my parents got killed. And then I shifted. Well, you were supposed to take a break, but it wasn't supposed to be eternal. Do you hear me? Does anyone hear me? Does anyone hear me? Does anyone hear me? We have to redirect. This is a part about redirecting. This is about redirecting. And let me tell you, granted, for those of you that like to play devil's advocate, we have to be realistic as well. You may not be able to do today at 45 or at 50 exactly what you had in mind when you were 21 or 22. It may not be like that, right? But it doesn't mean that you just throw in the towel and give up. It doesn't mean that either. It does not mean that either. Today's message is, you had to do what you had to do when you had to do it. Yes, that's a fact. But Spirit also says, it was never meant for you to stay there forever. It was never meant for you to stay there forever. if we forgot, because trauma will straight wipe out part of your memory, how do we reconnect? That is a great question. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I have the only answer or the best answer. And I'm not going to sit here and say that there's only one way to reconnect. But I will tell you this, from a spiritual perspective, from a metaphysical perspective, what trauma wipes out, our inner spirit always knows. Our inner spirit always knows. When we came into this universe, we came in with a contract. We came in with certain information that is registered in our inner spirit, which no trauma can wipe out. And when we really think about it, at least according to the teachings of Oricha, the teachings of Yoruba, it is the understanding that we came into this world with an agreement that we made with Olodumare, with God. And that at the moment and point of our physical birth into this world, that which we agreed to, that which our incarnate spirit agreed to with Olodumare, with God, we forget. As a baby, as a newborn child into this world, we forget. And that our job throughout our life is to remember. Is to remember. To remember what the original agreement was. To remember what role we were supposed to really play in this life, and not the one that's been inflicted and pushed down and shoved down our throats by people, by family, by society, by communities, by whomever, by husband, by wife, by whomever. And that is about being in connection with our inner spirit, being in connection with divine, being in connection with that part of ourself that is not tainted, harmed by trauma. Because trauma hurts our psyche. Trauma hurts our psyche. Trauma hurts our consciousness. Trauma can inflict pain into our subconscious, but trauma cannot wipe out. It cannot erase what our incarnate spirit knows to be true. And our job is to never stop rediscovering ourselves. We had to do what we had to do when we had to do it. And in the process of having to do what we had to do in order to survive, we stopped aiming at rediscovering ourselves. We stop aiming at rediscovering ourselves, and that's the problem. That is the problem. Okay, I gotta go. I got to go. But I hope that this message meant something. I ask that you please share this live on your page, share it in your stories, because it's also a way that you can help me with the uncooperative algorithms. Share it, tag someone, leave a comment, send it to somebody, because I feel that this message needs to be heard by someone out there. Yeah, that's what I got for you today. I love you all. I love you all. And I love you all. And don't forget, you had to do what you had to do when you had to do it, but it doesn't mean that you're supposed to stay there forever. Don't sentence yourself forever. It is something that's supposed to be transitional. It is something that's supposed to be a season, something that's supposed to be transitory. Don't stay there forever. Don't stay there forever. You were never meant to stay there forever. You had to do what you had to do when you had to do it in order to survive. Now it's time for you to drop the guilt of what you had to do. See, many of us can just be looking at this message from one perspective, but this can mean so many different things. You had to do what you had to do. And because you had to do it in order to survive, you had to go to that pole and dance and be a stripper. Now you won't put yourself out there as an entrepreneur because you're carrying the guilt of what if when I become an entrepreneur, I come across, I bump into somebody that recognized me when I was at the pole. Girl, let me tell you something. If you had to do what you had to do when you had to do it in order to survive, and if part of that doing took you to the pole, okay? Today you can be an entrepreneur. Today you can be the doctor. Today you can be the leader. Today you can be the healer. Today you can be as masterful as you allow yourself to be in the area in which you are supposed to shine without any shame. Without any shame. Because guess what? God's Spirit is not judging you. You are the one judging yourself. Your unevolved family members are the one judging you. Those with a lower level consciousness are the ones judging you. So for each and every one that judges you without knowing you, who you really are at the core, I want you to love yourself, because only love, only true, healthy self-love can grant you the freedom in places and spaces where others want to keep you hostage and cripple you. Hey, did you hear that? I hope this makes sense. I love you all. I shall see you again, hopefully pretty soon. Please share this live. Over and out.